So it's been a couple of days since I started to test out these new to me Neopastels. Even though I haven't completed this painting, I do think that I've done enough to give you my thoughts on this particular brand of oil pastels and whether or not I recommend them. Now I am planning to finish this painting, so if you would like to see that, let me know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss it. All right, let's go through the pros of this kit. I thought it was a good range of colors for an introductory kit. So we have a white, a light gray, which I thought was very helpful, a black, which I didn't use at all, a brown, an ochre color, which I found very useful. Then we have a yellow, a nice bright scarlet red. We have a purple that I would call a magenta color, an ultramarine, a light blue that I have not used as of yet, a cool green called emerald green, and a warmer green called yellow green. I do think that there's value in having a magenta as well as a red, magenta being more the true primary color. I love the light gray. I don't think that was in the other kit that I used, and so I used this for the background and I thought it was really nice. It's a good cool tone, very nice and soft, and I feel like I would be able to do a lot of things with it, even like dive into skies, and so maybe we'll try a landscape with this set next. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good selection. The one thing I would change with this palette, the greens are really bright. And maybe it's just I am like a desaturated green girly. I love green, but I don't want it to smack you in the face. And so I don't like a lot of saturation in my greens. I like to tone them down to add the complementary colors, and just having to mix so many different colors in with these greens to get them to be either the value that I wanted or the saturation that I wanted, by far the hardest part of this project. So I understand why they chose the brighter ones, because you can take a bright color and you can mix it into something that's a little bit more desaturated. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to go the other way. So I understand why they would do that for an introductory palette. I just kind of wish that they had picked, like allowed one to be bright, even though they went warm and cool. I would have allowed one to be bright, whether probably the cooler one, and allowed the warmer color to be more olivey. I don't know, someday maybe an oil pastel company will contact me about creating my preferred introductory kit. And when I'm able to do that, I will pick different greens, but it's fine. We'll wait until that opportunity arises. So another thing that I like about this set, it's a little bit easier to use because it is firmer. And so I was really able to get a lot of nice crisp edges, especially like the root of the radish. Although I guess the whole thing's a root. I don't know, whatever. The tail, the final root, the tip of the radish, however you want to say it, getting that nice and crisp while blending two colors together was actually pretty easy with this set, where Sennelier would have fallen apart. It would have been very difficult, and I would have had to work really hard to clean it up in post when I applied kind of that base color for the table. I did still have to do some cleanup, but it was very easy again because these have nice crisp edges. I was also able to keep them crisp so that I was able to add like tiny highlights, again, just able to get into these small areas that's more difficult with the Sennelier pastels, where I'm more likely to have to pull in a blending stump or something to kind of get into those smaller areas. That was not an issue with these oil pastels. And so that was really nice to have some of that freedom from areas that I found difficult in the past. Another pro would be that these blend nicely. They don't blend quite as nicely as Sennelier's oil pastel. So comparatively speaking, these are a lot harder to blend. Now you can blend them, and they do blend together beautifully. I also really liked how I was able to get a nice smooth surface and like a nice smooth gradient for my background, for my table, and I was able to kind of get a good range in there without having some of those base colors showing through. It took more work than with Sennelier, but I do feel like it did a good job. Again, my fingers were more tired afterwards than they are normally, but considering that it felt more like I was drawing, but I was able to blend everything together, that was really nice, especially when working with a limited palette. This could be a pro or a con, so we're going to use this to kind of go into our cons. This felt a lot more like working with crayons, and it was definitely giving me the feeling of drawing rather than the feeling of painting, where Sennelier's oil pastels, I feel like I'm dancing in between both, where I can use my skills in drawing, but then it's very painterly. So I'm kind of using both areas of my skill set, if that makes sense. And I love that. That's something that I have fallen in love with oil pastels. I didn't have that as much here with the Neopastel. It could be because they're harder, and so it felt a lot more like coloring with crayons, which I know is going to sound silly. You can make beautiful things with crayons, and I happen to do a lot of coloring with crayons because that's my phase of life. So if you're more interested in something more like that, where it has more of the drawing, a lot more of like a crayon feel, but with some blendability, this would be awesome. But if that's not what you're going for, I would say for me that fell more onto the con side, where it did feel just a lot more like drawing, a lot more like working with crayons. This just did not feel as painterly to me, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but for me that would be a con. For you, that might make it more attractive. And then I would say the other con kind of goes along with that, and I've already touched on it. They do blend. Unlike Crayola crayons, they do blend, but it takes a lot more work. And if you're trying to mix certain colors and you don't want the super pure saturated colors that are coming straight from your box, which is 100% my personality, this is not. I do not want this on my finished piece. I want softer, a little bit moodier. Now, I haven't done too much research yet. I'm about to hop on the internet and see how many of these I can get just as single oil pastels, because I think that these would be great in my kit if I can get certain colors. And you know, when the weather's a little bit warmer, I might be reaching for these a little bit more. So check the comments if I reach for these more instead of the Sennelier brand, and maybe those get a little bit too melty, I will leave a comment and pin it to the top so that it's easy to see. But as of right now, I can see these being more valuable to me for like detail areas, or maybe even like backgrounds, because you're able to get like real crisp around your subject. That would be really nice. So if I can order kind of one-off colors that I would generally use for a background, if I can't, then I'll probably just enjoy this beginner kit. So anyway, I hope that this was helpful. If you are interested in more oil pastel stuff, be sure to subscribe, because I do love to share my progress on this oil pastel journey that I'm on. I've been sharing different video tutorials, different things that I'm finding that are working well. But if oil pastel is just kind of a side hobby for you, I also have a lot of videos with drawing techniques and watercolor. So if you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe. Let me know if you'd like to see this step-by-step tutorial on this painting, and I will leave this set linked in the description down below, as well as the intro set that I started my oil pastel journey with that I highly recommend. All right, I hope that you are having a wonderful, wonderful day, and until next time, happy painting or drawing, depending on which oil pastels you're using. All right, bye.